How We Work Now, where we explore how people are reshaping the modern workplace through lived experience with neurodiversity, chronic illness, and disability. Today I'm joined by Francisco Oller Garcia, Manager of Solutions Engineering at RevSure AI. Francisco works at the intersection of revenue technology, sales, and technical problem solving, helping companies understand and implement complex AI and revenue platforms. Francisco also lives with a progressive physical disability that affects his balance and mobility, and he often shares his experiences navigating career growth, independence, and identity while using a wheelchair. I'm really excited to talk with him about how these experiences have shaped the way he thinks about work, leadership, and what success looks like. I'm so glad to have you here with us today, Francisco. Is there anything else you'd like to add about yourself?
Thank you, Anita. And in terms of, adding about myself, so much of my lived experience, so much of what I've been through, has shaped me into who I am. So that's why I particularly relish this opportunity because so much my mentality is my disability doesn't define me. I define it and I define it every single day. And it's my superpower. And that's never going to change.
I love that. Um, I think that's why it's so important to have these discussions with actual disabled people who are in the business space, because I feel like our stories are stories that are not talked about, they're forgotten, and it's important to put a spotlight on them, get them out there and say, we are here, we do exist, and this is, what it's like to be us, to navigate the world the way we are with the way the world is, and how we build our own structures to help support us. So,
Yeah.
you've spoken openly about growing up with a progressive physical disability. How did that shape your early expectations of adulthood and career, and how did those expectations evolve over time?
I think the biggest thing that it has shaped in me and shown me is the power of vulnerability and the power of being open to the world, right? And open to the fact that I can do anything and everything. It might not be the same as other people, but I can do anything and everything in my own way. And as I've grown up and as my perception of the world has continued to evolve, what I've seen is that sharing my life and sharing my journey and sharing the challenges and sharing the victories is so powerful, right? Because everybody goes through something. Everybody is has a challenge each and every day. So I think the thing that it has most instilled in me is that, there'll be good days, there'll be bad days, but it's in sharing with others that you create a deeper connection.
Mhm. It's something I hear so often throughout this interview series is the importance of connecting with other people, especially people you can relate to who have other disabilities or neurodivergence, and how we can support each other as a community to build each other up. So, it's really hard to find this disabled representation in professionals with tech or leadership. Did that lack of representation play a role in your journey?
It has definitely been, in a way, like, not that I think that I am the only and the ultimate representative, right? But it's shaped me and driven me in that in the tech space, in the B2B space. I don't think there really is another space where just the advantages rather, or right, really the unique lived experiences that we have can be such a differentiator, right? When I think about my life, when I think of what I've been through, knowing pain, knowing struggle, knowing challenge, I can tell you I use that every day, right? While my official title is Manager of Solutions Engineering, a lot of what I do is customer success. And in customer success, it's about patience, it's about sympathy, it's about empathy, and it's about even more so now than ever in a virtual world. it's noticing those small things, right? Noticing when your customer is having a good day, noticing when your customer is having an off day. And even on those days when I'm having an off day, I'll always show up with a smile because you never know how you, by being you, can change the life of that person.
Right. I think it's so important to talk about the hidden gifts and perspectives that come with having a disability and the ways in which we're able to problem solve in ways that someone who doesn't have that particular disability would never consider. So looking back, what experiences helped shape your belief that you could build the life and career you wanted?
The kind of the inflection point for me is I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So a lot of my warmness, my just a lot of who I am comes from my cultural background. So if you can imagine 18-year-old Francisco, like very excited, very eager, like I'm about to go to college. I'm going to create my own path. I'm going to create my own world. And I still remember September of 2012, my parents dropped me off and I see them going away. And just in the back of my mind, there's that woman who like, what did I just get into, right? Like I left everything I had entire know, support systems, my parents, like just even language, right? Like in Puerto Rico, we speak both Spanish and English, but the majority of the time I speak Spanish, right? When I'm back home. So that moment taught me, right? Like when and fast forward 4 years at Providence College, I was a recipient of the Leaving a Legacy Award, which is amazing to think that in 4 years I created an impact that would be that would live beyond me. And I
Mhm.
did it again because then I moved to Tampa to get my MBA. So I knew that at every moment you can create community and you can create belonging when you lead with honesticity. And honesticity is a word that I created that means by being honestly authentic, you create that
Mhm.
environment for others to be that way too.
Of that. So, are you saying that your cultural background growing up in Puerto Rico and your just general exuberance and confidence as an 18-year-old really helped you shape and cement that belief that you could build the life you wanted, and then you started gaining recognition and rewards, and that helped just springboard you on your way?
I would say it's a part of it, right?
Hmm.
It's fuel. It's definitely fuel and adrenaline every day. I think so much of it was finding my purpose, which I found in college, which is to empower people to live life with self-acceptance and courage. And yeah, it's not my job title, and yeah, it's not like in any job description, but it's something that I know I can do every single day by just being myself and finding comfort and finding joy in that life is this amazing adventure that I know I'm living life the way you should live life.
I think that is such a fantastic perspective and way to look at life, focusing on the little things and making it an adventure and fantastic. I think romanticizing, our dreams and what we can do is such a great tool to keep that fire under us, to keep us motivated. So let's move on to kind of how we design work differently to work for us. How do
Mm.
you manage energy, mobility, and travel demands in a role that often involves meetings, demos, and a lot of collaboration?
Every day is a journey. So much of it is not that my mobility is powered by coffee, but I can tell you my brain is powered by coffee every single day. And it's right. So I think so much of it is creating my space, right? Like I have um like my laptop and my two computer screens. I have my microphone and I've built different systems, right? Like using ChatGPT just of the repeatable processes that I do. And in doing those repeatable processes, how I constantly ask myself, how can the experience that I deliver for my customers be equally as extraordinary as if I were to do this? So building those systems where after a call, I can deliver a call summary, but a detailed call summary where
Mhm.
I can action and a customer can action. And creating balance, right? So what that means is I love to do video, right? Because video is a connection tool and with video, all you see is a person and a person walking through a product and a person doing something. In them, also that person who will admit to my customers that I am in a wheelchair and that I have a disability. Just
Mhm.
because to me, it's when you connect in that way, it changes the whole paradigm, right? Because I'm not just talking to you as your customer success manager. Yes, that's part of it, but I'm talking to you as Francisco, your customer success manager, who's also navigating life in my own way in the same way that you're
Mhm.
navigating your own life.
It's kind of reaching out to people person to person, apart from just the business side of things, being human together.
Correct. Hmm.
Do you have any tools or systems specifically that help you stay productive and organized?
So one of them is ChatGPT, definitely in creating those repeatable processes. Second to that is my Google Calendar. That thing I just like I have kind of every minute of every day measured using different video tools, video platforms,
Mhm.
right? Just in and creating and just creating like repeatable processes, right? Like I'll create a video and then like with a software, like I'll make it like more generalized, kind of transparently, I do send all my videos are personalized. I rather take the 1 minute, 2 minute to make it personalized.
Mhm.
Um, and then just having like my three screens, right? Because in that way, I can be supporting a customer, and while supporting that customer, I can be searching the question to an answer they had, right? Or dealing with an emerging situation before it becomes even more emerging.
So, how do you advocate for what you need at work without feeling like you're asking for too much?
Oof, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think it's so much of it comes down to and it's something that I think I stress a lot is connecting person to person, right? It's just when people understand you and when people understand that the reason why you need this is not just because you're asking for it, it's because yes, you're at your peak, but with this, you can be even at even greater peak, right? Like you're
Mm.
productive, you're energetic, but with this, like you can do more, right? So much of life and so much of everything, right? It's not that it's sales, but it's positioning and sales, right? It's
Mm.
how do you communicate that not only is this valuable to you because it is, but how at the end of the day will lead to greater outcomes, to improve metrics, into right what's the impact that that will deliver.
Right. 'Cause communication skills are such a huge, like vital tool to accomplish a lot of things in our very social society as we're social creatures. And I think that's where I appreciate a lot of my work around the neurodivergence because communication is something that is difficult a lot for neurodivergent people. But yeah, I think the importance of communication can't be understated, especially when you're trying to pierce that corporate veil and the corporate politics that aren't necessarily geared towards disabled people. um, so, how have your experiences changed how you think about accessibility in the tech products you work on themselves?
Mhm. I think my own experience has taught me like how because I I've met people throughout my life. I've met people who are blind, right? Or like they don't
Mhm.
have the best vision because of a medical condition, right? So thinking about like, is this accessible? Is this readable, right? Is if someone were to come here, could they would they be able to use this, right? Like how clickable are the buttons? Because all these different things play a role in that person understanding, in that person using something, right? So I try to bring my own lived experience, but also in the experiences in the people I've interacted with who've told me, through this is great, but I wish it had this. This is great, but oh, my friend who has this, I wish he could see this, or I wish he could be able to better use this because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, that lived experience is, I think, another huge edge disabled people have because someone who has no disabilities would have no idea where to start a lot of times when it comes to accessibility and what needs to be changed so that more people can use a product.
Right.
So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you come across a lot that people have about professionals who use wheelchairs?
I think the biggest misconception, or rather, sometimes I've seen this in like job interviews. It's like the ability to carry X. I'm like, okay, like I am working with tech. I'm working with a software.
Mhm.
When am I ever going to have to carry like something,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, and I'm like, I get it. Like, maybe there's legally a reason you have to do that, but that kind of doesn't make sense. But again, not, not, but I think the biggest thing that I get, or the biggest thing that I experience, or rather, it's that most of the time I know that whenever I go to any networking event or any conference, I will more than likely be the only person in a wheelchair, right? And part of that is it can be, sometimes be like okay, like in my mind, I'm like, am I gonna be the only person in a wheelchair there? And it's becoming comfortable in yourself, right? I think so much of there always be misconceptions, there'll always be biases. Sadly, that's just how life is. But I think that should not stop us from wanting to educate and being curious, right? Like when a person comes up to you and they ask something, um, it's trying to be as open and patient and curious as you can be, right? Because you don't know what they know or what they may never experience, right? So many times I hear,
Mhm.
I just hadn't not met a person in a wheelchair. And
Right.
that's totally okay. That's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that, you know?
Mhm. So, in your experience, a lot of the misconceptions isn't a lot of preconceived ideas of what people in a wheelchair do, but more so the preconceived idea that they just don't see a lot of people in wheelchairs in corporate conferences and spaces like that. And so it's um, something they don't have a lot of experience with in general, a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. And I think it's just also people have different personalities, right? I
Mm.
recognize that um I am a very extroverted, very open, very like I'm just like very open to the world
Mhm.
and others with disabilities aren't, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just different people, right, go through life in different
Mhm.
ways. So I think it's sometimes I think the is just being comfortable with yourself, right? And like how you're saying, it's like sometimes the biggest misconception is the preconceived notions that we ourselves as people with disabilities hold on in our own
Mm,
minds, because sometimes the people who may be sitting across us, that may be the farthest thing in their head. The next
right.
thing they think about is that big meeting they have.
Yeah. We have to remember people are so focused on themselves, they're usually not thinking about you. They're thinking about their own things they have to do.
Correct.
So, what changes, in your opinion, would make tech and SaaS careers more accessible to more people?
I think part of it is um just having more leaders, right, to look up to in this space. I know that there's some cool organizations that are doing, different initiatives. I think one of them is like Disability In, I think if I'm recalling right off the top of my head too, right? Because if you have people to look up to or people who are like in this space, then that kind of gives you like, if he did it, I can do it, right? If that person did it, then I can do it too. So it's so much of it is getting the opportunity, right? And what I can tell you is that I've been very fortunate to have very good mentors,
Mhm.
people who have been on my side and people who have understood me. And I think why my path has been open in such a way, and not everybody has to do this, is because I've been very vocal and visible about navigating life as a
Mhm.
Latino with a disability in SaaS.
Right.
And everybody knows that. We not,
Mhm.
everybody's a pretty big term, right? Just considering that LinkedIn is not everybody, right? But just with that, people know that when they go into a conversation with me, this is me. And that is me, right? But what I will bring to the table, and I think I've even said it in interviews and in different places that I have, is that the experiences I've lived through, every single job that I've worked at, I'm I'm driven to be the best that I can be, only because I want to be the best that I can be. But also, if my life is if my life is something, it's a study in resilience, it's a study in problem solving, and it's a study in being creative.
Exactly. I think that's such a beautiful way to view things. So, could you talk a little bit more about Disability In? Is that the nonprofit that you were talking about?
Correct. Yeah, I believe that's a nonprofit, and they have a mentorship program in which they connect individuals with disabilities to different mentors in different places. Like I know somebody at he works at L'Oreal. He's hard of hearing. He's one of the nicest guys ever, but he does that like every year. And he told me about all these different things that like L'Oreal is doing for like helping individuals with different like physical abilities like be able to put their makeup on. And I'm like, this is so cool. I never would have
Mhm.
thought about this in a million years, but it's in those programs, right? And they help, and they post about the different job opportunities and different organizations that are very open and very friendly to individuals with different abilities.
What a fantastic resource. Thank you for sharing that with our viewers, Francisco. I'll make sure to put a link or something in the description of this video. So let's talk about the future and hope. What gives you the most excitement about the future of work and how you see the possibilities opening up?
Mm. The thing that excites me most about the future of work is how through the different convergence of like AI, advances in like speech to text, in creating, just being able to create anything just based off a prompt. I think in it's becoming more equitable. I think there's still a lot of work to do, but it's more equitable in that just with speaking, right? Depending on the ability that you have, you're able to do what you need to do and do it at a greater capacity. And that's what excites me about work is that all these different enhancements and all these different things that are being done are just made for, right? If you know how to use it, it can be such an advantage in, and I'm excited to see one of the things that I do is there's this local like innovation hub for like high school students here in Tampa. It's called Shark Makers, and they interviewed me last week because one of the things that they want to work on is making it more accessible for individuals with different abilities to be able to go to events, to be able to go to restaurants because of the limitations that they've seen of
Mhm.
people with disabilities with understanding understanding that just knowing how to get to a place isn't enough, right? It's knowing how to get to a place, how to get out of a place. If there's a
Mm,
concert, what exits are going to be covered? What exits are not going to be covered? Is there a step?
mhm.
Isn't there a step? Is there an elevator? Does that elevator work? And there's all these variables and factors that right that play a role in the day-to-day life of a person. And having the technology now where if we understand what are the challenges of a person that we can create solutions much more rapidly than ever, that's exciting.
Right. The advancement of technology and how much that's enabling more and more disabled people to accomplish more and do more with assistance that just didn't exist in the past. I think that is a huge source of hope and just wonderment because it's, I think, really fantastical how much technology is evolving and all the things that we could never have imagined a few years ago that are now existing in the world. So, what advice would you give to someone with a disability who's just entering the workforce today?
It's it's kind of the advice that changed my whole trajectory and the entirety of my life is being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Like how I spoke about before about like our preconceived notions and how I spoke about how so much of life is the mindset that you go into it with. And as you enter the workforce, it's knowing that, the there are challenges to getting a job for any person, and even more so magnified for people with different abilities. But the reality is that in our virtual world, sometimes that doesn't even come to fruition. In my case, I've I've done the opposite in that I've taken the narrative and I've rolled with it. And even though I'm on Zoom every single day, you can ask almost any one of my customers and they'll know about my life. They know what I've been through. So the advice that I would share is be confident in yourself, be knowledgeable in yourself, and always think about how what you've been through is a superpower and what you've
Mm.
been through is an advantage.
Perspective and framing, and using that for your own benefit instead of your detriment, right?
Mhm.
I think that's really powerful. So, one last question before we wrap up our interview. what legacy do you hope to leave through your work and your advocacy?
Mm. The legacy that I hope to leave in my work and in my advocacy is something that I strive for every single day, and that is to empower people to live life with self-acceptance and courage, because that is a fight, that is a battle, that is something that is the most challenging thing to do every day. And as a person who proudly says that, I can tell you every day is an adventure, but it's in that adventure, in finding myself and in sharing myself, that I have found the greatest purpose, because you never know how you being you will change the life of another person.
Wow, just authenticity and joy and bringing light to the world in your own way.
Hmm.
Just wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Francisco, for coming on the show today and, sharing about your life experiences and your knowledge and hopefully helping other disabled people to have hope and ideas about how they can forge their own path forward and live the life they want to live because our disabilities don't define us. I love what you said, that you define your disability. You don't let it define you. I think that is my favorite takeaway from this whole conversation today. We can define our own disabilities and define our own lives, and we don't have to let other people do that for us. So, thanks again for coming on the show. Is there any last words you want to share before we close out?
The last word that I would like to say is, so much of life is gratitude, right? And at the core of everything that I do is gratitude. Gratitude for what I have, gratitude for where I've been, and gratitude for the unknown, because I don't know how the future is going to shape me, and that's what excites me the most. So be grateful for today, be grateful for tomorrow, and be grateful for that cup of coffee, that cheese, whatever makes you happy. Be grateful for that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Francisco. Very grateful that you came today. With that, I'll see everyone next week, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a great day. Bye.